Hello, everyone. We're delighted and excited to have you here with us. I'm thrilled and honored to have our esteemed guest, Dr. Nashalla Nyinda. Nashalla began her Tibetan medicine studies in 1999 and is among a small handful of fully trained Westerners with the title of Menpa, Doctor of Tibetan Medicine. She teaches Tibetan medicine, meditation, and soul birthing method and Asian healing modalities worldwide. Nashalla, it's a great pleasure to have you joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me again. So I was really excited when I saw that the Shift Network's theme for this year for the summit was diving into the spiritual, because as you know, Tibetan medicine is like absolutely interconnected with Tibetan Buddhism. And so I want to talk to you today a little bit about that. So I want to talk especially about the medicine Buddha. So the medicine Buddha is really central to our system of healing. And this is because the medicine Buddha is an expression of an awakened one, a Buddha. So what a Buddha means actually is one who has gone beyond this ordinary and limited view of self and other. What this means is that there is a direct perception that develops into how the laws and the cycles of nature act, which comes through practicing exactly what the medicine Buddha taught. So when you learn Tibetan medicine, you learn about surrendering into the view that our inner ecology is made of these 5 elements, and it is not somehow separate from the cycles and seasons and the laws that form our nature's intricate systems throughout the world. So Tibetan physicians dive really deeply into very subtle aspects, which are both unique to each individual, but also how these subtle aspects change with various substances which get ingested into the body, what kind of mental and emotional states flow through the more subtle body channels and our consciousness, and how all of that affects health. So we learn, as I've talked about in previous summits, that the 6 tastes interact with our inner ecology, and that these then transmute into 3 post-digestive tastes. So in this way, we look at literally every substance which we encounter, from foods to herbs to minerals, as either potential medicine or potential poison. And this depends 100% on the unique makeup of a person that we're treating. So first, let's begin to understand that the 5 elements co-merge with our consciousness, and that even to obtain a precious human body, all 5 elements plus our karmic propensity has to gather, meet all the perfect conditions to grow within the womb of a mother. So interdependence of phenomena, meaning the causes and the condition for our personal constitutional makeup, are reflected in this Buddhist system, and it is done in such a way that it's very wholly unique from other systems, even those with sets of elements and humors. And this is because it's based on the Buddhist principle that your idea of this self, and in fact, the pathophysiology of a perceived and experienced self, is dependent on a basic unknowing or an ignorance. And this ignorance is truly just a lack of connection, or an ignorance that we hold ourselves as separate from all phenomena. And you will hear of this ignorance named in Tibetan medicine as the root cause of all disease on any physical, emotional, or spiritual plane. So this ignorance puts us at direct odds against merging with this natural phenomena of the world. And many indigenous systems of medicine recognize this, and that this ignorance then merges with the actual, 5 elements on a physical form. And that this is based on our karma, the elemental dominances of our parents, and in particular, the mother's diet and behavior during our gestation. And that's when we begin to form dominances or preferences in our body, our mind, our speech, our consciousness. And this basically is how we end up or derive a constitutional makeup, how these 5 elements behave in our physical and emotional self, all form from a very early stage. Now, this is not to say that external stimuli or childhood or major life events cannot change the way these elements dominate our systems. It absolutely can. However, there's a fundamental ground upon which our consciousness sort of sticks in a habituated way, and that really forms the pathophysiology. So the essential formation of these 5 into particular energetic states are what many systems, such as Ayurveda, might translate as humor or constitutional energy, primary elemental dominance. In Tibetan, however, we translate this directly as 3 faults or 3 primary energies. And this word fault comes because there's a split of this equilibrium or homeostasis of really having this co-understanding and interdependent nature of phenomena be a one entity that we are interacting with at all times. So the complete balance of the 5 elements becomes derived directly from this unknowing or this ignorance, this separation from our world. And that leads to us perceiving this temporary human body as somehow separate from all of nature, all of phenomena, and the universe. This is a very fundamental Buddhist principle, and this is how it merges into this special medicine. So we take the earth and the water, and it combines to form what's known as the pagan energy. It's responsible for the endocrine system, our synovial fluids, our joints, our fats, the moisture in our body, the initial breakdown of food in our stomach from that mechanical digestion into a chemical state. It is the steadiness of calm. It is the regeneration which comes from good sleep and healthy adrenals. It is the deep well of energy that we need to have and tap into to maintain longevity. It is the strength of the bones. Fire, which we call tipa, this is the direct expression of our metabolism. It's our blood. It's our heat. It's responsible for the movement and the production of all of our digestive power, which aids in further producing and extracting those nutrients which are needed in the blood and the tissues. It's the sharpness of the mind. It's the clever ideas. It's that focus and stamina that we use to manifest. And literally, it's the movement of substances throughout the blood to nourish the tissues, the muscles, and the ligaments. And we have wind, which we call lung. And it is the subtle aspect of the mind and the emotions. It rules the entire functioning of our nervous system. So this includes the CNS, the PNS, right? Everything. It is literally the movement capacity throughout the body, which is based on the functions of the nervous system and the feedback loops that they develop. This also relates directly to peristalsis, from the top to the bottom of the alimentary canal or your digestion. It is our speech function, and it's the speed of the mind. Unique here with lung or wind energy is that it can sort of be a little neutral. It can ride along in a really more neutral way and attach itself to which other elemental group might be dominant. And therefore, it's a bit like a hot wind would be an example. Speeding up everything, really quick metabolism, or in a really imbalanced state like acid reflux, right? Coming up. Or like a forest fire within, if you can think of it in that term. Or it could attach itself over to the pagan, that earth and water. And think of a cold wind, right? Causing stagnation, freezing the fluids, difficulty moving, arthritis, sluggish digestion, constipation. So people always go, well, what about that fifth element? Where is space? So space, which some systems call metal, is essentially omnipresent. It's the Buddha nature. This is the connection to moving beyond self and other, to awakening this interconnected phenomena of enlightenment, to the utter, clear, perfect, clear awareness, which we all have. And we all have the potential to realize. In other words, this is the shapeless, formless glue that provides space for all things to be and exist with one another. Let me give you an example physiologically. We need space in our interstitial tissues. We need space in the vasculature of our blood for it to flow properly. We need space between the organs. There is space in the spongy bone. There is space in the very womb, which we even form. This space element is beyond grasping form. It just is. And this is why it is so connected to the Buddha realm or awakened Buddha energy, and also why it's considered omnipresent and not separate or within the other four. So as a side note, Buddhist meditation and medicine understands that all beings are already intrinsically awakened and enlightened. However, it is our ignorance or our perceptions, which we hold and cling to so dearly, that we are somehow separate, that we are a self. I'm an I, and that's an other. Me and you. This is the block to pure perception and an awakened viewpoint. And just as it's said in multiple Buddhist texts, this is dust in the eyes. So the idea of Dharma, of Buddhism, and the words of the Buddha or the path of awakening is to wipe the dust from the eyes. So this means we have a choice. We can either stay in this unknowing ignorance, which gives rise to these three faulty energies, which combine in a pathophysiological imbalanced state, which we call the three root poisons. Or we can transmute them. We can harness that clear light that's already there and bring them to the three wisdom states. So you see, we Tibetan physicians, we have a very deep view of phenomena in relating to these primary energies of Lung and Tipa and Pagan. And so by looking deeper into dominant patterns, not just physiologically, but emotionally, spiritually, karmically, you can very easily begin to apply the correct antidotes of food and herbal substances to bring balance throughout the cycles of life, through the environment and the seasons that people are experiencing. But also, more importantly, this is to help cultivate that true perception, enlightenment. Also, this is commonly known in medicine as like pure vision. So this pure vision is the vision of a medicine Buddha who knows exactly how to treat the imbalance of the elements on any level of the body, mind, and spirit at any stage of illness or imbalance, from the very root poison of ignorance through the following root poisons as they develop as Lung, Tipa, and Pagan, or throughout any stage of awakening into a wisdom state. So there are many, many spiritual practices in the Tibetan tradition, which help to awaken this pure vision or the clairvoyance or enlightenment, cleansing of the subtle body and the channels. But for the healer, none is more important than the medicine Buddha practice. So each and every Tibetan doctor must merge with the medicine Buddha. And we, in fact, act as a medicine Buddha. We awaken our own intrinsic enlightenment to further awaken and develop pure perception in order to better serve our patients. So the practice, when given with a very proper transmission from a lineage holder, helps to develop that intuition and deep inner knowing of what particular elemental forces are dominant in the person and that they're examining. So we need to know, what stage of heat or what stage of cold or what level in the body or how deeply or how many organs, what is happening and which elements are to quote unquote blame for such imbalances. So this deeper perception will actually develop and go beyond assessments of what we typically do when we read the pulse or the urine, or we ask diagnostics or look at the tongue, which are all typical understandings of what is a healthy measurement of the elements and what does that look like as it moves into their imbalance, to their excess, or what may be deficient, or what may even be behaving in a total opposite way, contrary to its typical structure and function physiologically. So this pure vision helps develop one's sense perceptions, and it heightens the awareness when interacting with healing plants and what they have to offer. And that's from a fundamental level of the 6 tastes on the tongue, as well as developing a deeper intuition into what both the patient may be experiencing, but unable to process or express themselves, or what particular formulas or medicines might hit at some deeper level beyond just the physical. So this is a pure perception, which is rooted in a very thorough understanding in these principles of the laws of nature, which I've talked about in previous summits with the 6 tastes, their basic characteristics, their influences on these 3 primary energies of lung, Tipa, and pagan. But today, I'm going to draw you in a little bit deeper into the Medicine Buddha. So when I teach Medicine Buddha, I always explain that it's most important to become connected, to develop that connection with faith and devotion in order to be able to fully embody that enlightened pure vision principle within yourself. This is cultivated primarily through the practice of accumulating mantra recitations of the Medicine Buddha's mantra, and also what is known as generation and completion practice. So generation practice is where you first invite the Medicine Buddha into your ordinary realm, right here in this room in front of you, as a frontal visualization, which we will do in a moment. So slowly, with instructions, you can learn to transform yourself into the Medicine Buddha, so that as you perform any of your healing duties, or you're picking medicines, or you're making medicines, you're acting as one who has gone beyond, one who has wiped the dust from your eyes, as the enlightened healer that you already are. Not as an ordinary self, limited to this dualistic idea of self and other. This is really the ultimate compassionate healing principle that we all really need to tap into to share true healing with others. And if you have this pure perception beyond this dualistic thinking, you gain much deeper understanding of what is imbalanced, and it's easier to detect and easier to help correct it. So let's have an introduction to the Medicine Buddha practice. I do encourage you to receive the transmission in person from someone who is authorized to give this transmission, though anyone can practice this practice without such a transmission. This is not always so in some particular Buddhist practices and texts. So please make sure that you always seek a genuine guide or a teacher and check their credentials when doing Buddhist practice. So there are some aspects deeper in the inner mandala of the Medicine Buddha practice, which we're not going to go into today, but those do need very direct and very specific transmissions and are only given after some stages of accomplishment of the primary practice are reached. So it's a process, and it's one where basically you're getting to know your own enlightened self. So online is not really a full, genuine transmission, but I will walk us through meeting this king of medicine, this one who has gone beyond the dualistic thinking that we are somehow separate from this nature and phenomena. So I'm going to encourage you to look at a photo of the medicine Buddha. As you develop this practice, the details will become more clear in your visualization. In the beginning, we're only going to use very basic colors of light. This is my experience over many years of giving these teachings, that this really helps you to develop the sensation and the sense perception of experiencing the Buddha in the room with you before you really work on the details. And if you ever come to my teachings in person, I would explain how you increase those visualizations very slowly, but anyone who's authorized should be able to do that. However, just the benefit with the lights and the energy of the healing Buddha is exactly the same and very effective. It's truly the faith in the power of this healing Buddha and his ability to not only correct imbalance, but to grow your pure awakened perception, which will give rise to this sacred connection that you will develop. And this can truly heal very many karmic and difficult illnesses. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a picture of the medicine Buddha. So you will see that before you, I have an image of the seed syllable of the medicine Buddha. It is pronounced Om. 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 Mantra in Sanskrit, man means mind, and cha means to protect. When we say a mantra or a seed syllable, literally what we're doing is we're protecting the mind. So this is the seed syllable, which then can turn and develop into the full body of the medicine Buddha. So you can begin with the simple seed syllable. I will do the mantra at the end. But this is also a good way to begin that visualization from moving from what I'm going to explain into, a more solidified version, which you'll see on the right. You see his body is blue. I want to correct a mistranslation that is worldwide, which is it is not lapis lazuli. That is the medicine Buddha. It is actually Bindurya, is star sapphire in Tibetan. So I don't know how the mistranslation happened, but I think it was just an early on thing that got turned into English and never really got corrected. But if you think about the qualities of a star sapphire, it's luminous and it shines its light in all 10 directions without exception, just like the medicine Buddha practice. And it's very luminous and clear, right? It's that pure vision. So what we're doing is we're actually slowly developing the Vajra body, which is where we are without our organs, we become the Buddha. But for our purposes, for those of you who have never experienced this practice, we just begin by finding a nice, comfortable posture. Your spine should be erect so that you can feel the flow of wind energy through your body easily. And if you have a very speedy mind, you can narrow your gaze. If you have a more sleepy mind, you can widen your gaze to bring in sense perception. And we just invite the medicine Buddha to this realm, asking him to come from his sacred palace filled with healing medicines. Arriving in front of us, we imagine a lotus flower. And upon that lotus flower, you either see a bright, luminous, shimmering, pure blue light, the color of star sapphire, shining its light in all 10 directions to all beings without exception. Or you can begin by seeing the seed syllable of Hung forming on top of the lotus, radiating its light. And this is not an imagined sensation. This is with pure trust and faith that when you call upon the medicine Buddha will come. When you need assistance, the medicine Buddha will show up because you will develop a relationship, a connection. You will awaken your own inner medicine Buddha who is sitting in front of you, looking like a radiant blue light. Even if it's just a blue blob in your mind, let that be. Feel infinite compassion, infinite loving kindness, and the ardent wish to heal all beings from the sufferings which come from birth, old age, sickness, and death. The oceans of samsaric existence, where our unknowing cuts us off from our connection to the divine truth of all phenomena. That same energy spreads out to you with that radiant blue light. And from the top, where there would be a forehead area, you would imagine white light radiating from the forehead of the medicine Buddha's area to your own forehead, penetrating with loving, healing capacity and turning into Dutsi-like nectar, healing ambrosia and essence, which drips down into your body, cleansing all aspects of any illness, disharmony, disequilibrium, anything related to actual physical form. If you have gout, you send the white light to your big toe. If you have weak kidneys, you send that white healing nectar to the kidneys, to the lungs. If you have lung weakness, to the heart, to the bones, to any area in the body whatsoever that needs healing energy. And be open to receiving that white, radiating, penetrating, and cleansing healing light through the top of your forehead, dripping down into every crevice of every organ and throughout your system. Then from the throat-centered area of the medicine Buddha, or the blue light which you see hovering in front of you atop a lotus, you see a brilliant red light which begins to radiate out from that throat center area into your own throat chakra, purifying, cleansing, and healing all aspects of speech. This could be difficult speech, speech that you can't get out of your mouth, things that you have held back that need to be said, boundaries. This could be harsh speech, things you wish you hadn't said, things that had harmed others with your words, things that have harmed yourself, negative self-talk, gossip, divisive speech. Allowing that red light to penetrate into your own throat chakra area, purifying, cleansing, and healing all aspects of speech. And then you begin to notice the heart center area of the blue light, the blue medicine Buddha in front of you, radiating out an extremely beautiful, luminous blue light penetrating your own heart chakra area, transforming all negativities and emotions of the mind and your heart and your consciousness, allowing it to penetrate like healing nectar, providing the complete antidote for any suffering on the mental and emotional level. And you can begin to look towards this blue light hovering on a lotus, the seed syllable home, or the fully radiant king of medicine, Vindurya, star sapphire, medicine Buddha, the one who has gone beyond, sitting on a lotus throne, radiating white light from his forehead, red light from his throat, and blue light to your heart from his heart, radiating in all 10 directions without exception, with the ardent and deep true wish that healing happen on all levels of body, speech, and mind for all beings in this world with no exceptions, so that all may be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And just notice how you're feeling. Notice what might be different in your physical form. As we thank the medicine Buddha for appearing, we feel the rays of light retracting back into that main blue light in front of us. In Buddhism, we always dedicate our merit. It's kind of like putting a bookmark in our practice so that as we develop, we can come back to the bookmark and we begin anew. So we're never starting from the beginning. So I'm going to say the mantra, and then I will dedicate the merit as we ask the medicine Buddha to then return to his palace in the far eastern realm with all his medicinal forests. Te ata o be tam se be tam se ma be tam se Raja Samudra Te So Teta Bekenze Maha Bekenze Raza Samogate Soha. Teta Bekenze Maha Bekenze Raza Samogate Soha. Teta Bekenze Maha Bekenze Raza Samogate Soha. By this merit, may all obtain admissions, may defeat the enemies of wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the oceans of samsara. May I free all beings. So lastly, I want to give you an explanation of the plant, which you had seen him holding in his right hand. This is a plant named Arura, and this is used in both Tibetan and Ayurvedic medicine. This is a myrobalan plant, and it is the fruit of the Terminella tubula. So it possesses all 6 tastes, all 8 potencies, and all 17 secondary qualities and properties of all herbal medicine. And this makes it the treatment for all 404 diseases that are outlined within the Gyushi, or the 4 medical tantras of Tibetan medicine. So when it's in his right hand, when he's offering it, what that means is that he's offering you healing on the relative level, the bodily level, the form level, this level where we think that we're separate and we have physical suffering, the suffering which comes from having this precious human body. So this is the birth, the old age, the sickness, the death. This is the basic pathophysiology that we experience when we have colds or cancer. So it goes that whole gamut for the relative suffering. In his left hand, this is the stability of mind and the pure vision and the healing ambrosia, or the nectar, in his bowl of immortality, which relates to the elimination of the ultimate suffering, which is that unknowing or that lack of connection to all phenomena. So this is like a very, very quick and short sort of version of the Medicine Buddha practice that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that it will bring benefit to you.
Wow, Dr. Nashalla, this was amazing and profound on every level. That meditation was incredibly powerful for me, and I know it was for our listeners as well. As our time comes to a close, I have a few questions. This system is incredible. And so I'm wondering, and you must have stories that you've witnessed and facilitated just phenomenal healing for others using this spiritual practice and this modality of healing. Can you share any?
I think probably the most profound example I can give is I had a patient who had all 3 types of pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is an endocrine system cancer. 2 of them are very fast growing. 1 of them is very slow growing. This particular patient had all 3, and they had very young children. So they were trying to really extend their time, and they didn't believe in Buddhism at all. They were like not interested in any sort of spiritual guidance whatsoever. They were just really freaked out. And so they didn't want to take herbs because they didn't want them to interfere with their treatments. They just came for some Tibetan hands-on work to calm down and to sleep better and those sorts of things. So I did the Medicine Buddha practice as I worked on their body, and I prayed to the Medicine Buddha because we were trying to get them through chemo to be surgical, because either you're surgical or you're not. The head of the pancreas is very close to the aorta. It's a very complex system. And so sometimes when it's very advanced or the tumor can't shrink, then it's non-surgical, and then it's super palliative at that point. So there was a chance that they could be surgical through trying to shrink the tumors somewhat. But they had all 3 types, and 2 of them were very aggressive. And so I did the Medicine Buddha practice, and I requested for the Medicine Buddha to encapsulate the fast growing cancer with the slow growing cancer. And I'm not really sure what made me sort of request this, but it was just what I felt like I could ask at that point. And the person went through a series of chemo and a lot of sessions with me every week. And they went off to the top pancreatic cancer department out of state. And they went for surgery. And when they came back, I asked them, so how, where are we at? And they said, it was the weirdest thing. And they couldn't explain it because they had never, ever seen it before. And that was that the slow growing cancer encapsulated the fast growing cancer. And I was like, oh, I'd been a Tibetan doctor for decades at that point. And it was like renewed my faith in the Medicine Buddha. And then, they were able to extend to 3 years their time, and they were able to say goodbye to their children and prepare. And, they were very angry in the beginning of their diagnosis, and they were very at peace at the end. So that was a successful sort of phenomenal healing. Sometimes healing does not always mean recovery, but I considered that as one of the most profound Medicine Buddha treatments I had ever seen, because there was no other medicine involved.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's going to encourage and inspire a lot of people. And for those who want to dive perhaps more deeply into learning about Tibetan medicine, how can we do that honorably, reverently, without, risking cultural appropriation of a system which has really been unbroken for thousands of years?
Thank you for asking that question, because that's really dear to my heart. As one of the only Westerners that represent this as a fully trained doctor, there's just a handful of us worldwide that have, papers and are considered physicians. And so as Tibetan medicine explodes in the West and becomes very much something that other people are interested in. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a really wonderful thing. And the Medicine Buddha himself in the text taught to, 4 different classes of beings who all spoke different languages, and they all understood it through the power of his compassion. So I think that this is a system that belongs to the whole world. But I think it is really vital to understand that the Tibetan people have some issues of threat and marginalization that are in place where they have to also maintain the integrity of the system. And if you look at some other systems of healing that have moved from east to west, you can see some, adding the water and thinning out. And I have a lot of fear for that. And so I think one of the main things is to understand the difference between someone who might be practicing some areas of Tibetan medicine and offering some dietary and lifestyle guidance, more like a practitioner level kind of coach, or they're doing some of the body work. They've been trained in the Kunye therapies, Meibum, which is cupping, Metsa, which is moxa, things of that nature. Or they might even be like a fully trained acupuncturist, or, a lifestyle coach or whatever. And I think that that is fine as long as people are really willing to say what their scope of practice is and where that limit is. So I think that's really important that people hold that integrity themselves. But I also think it's really important to differentiate the difference between someone who's a fully trained Menpa and those who have studied enough to be of benefit to other beings. And so I think being really clear about that and not necessarily getting medicine for difficult conditions from people who had not been trained in the full system is really vital. And then checking the credentials of who's teaching you. I also tend to be somewhat against mail order herbs or things that I see on the shelf, like Himalayan formula, wonder, secret of the adrenal forever, kind of whatever, because I'm like, they may not be traditionally blended with the understanding of those, 6 days, 3 post-digestive tastes, 8 qualities, 17 secondary qualities. I mean, that's a very intense, the pharmacy piece is really huge. And so I think really appreciating and seeking out properly trained people to use the herbs. Simple kitchen spice medicine, which I've talked about a lot here with Shift Network over the years, I think is totally safe and wonderful. But getting into the traditional formulas, I really encourage people to seek qualified care.
Absolutely. And do you have any free teachings and offerings that people can access, as well as where can we learn more about your work personally?
So there's a couple of places for me. I have academia pages and I have ResearchGate pages where a lot of my work is published. I have stuff on our website, which you can find as holistic-health.org. And then we are in the process of relaunching a 501c3 that is a nonprofit that's actually been in existence since 1986, since my husband's original teacher was coming here and studying with my original teacher, who was a Western practice GP doctor. And so he has handed it over to me, and we are now working on, the propagation and legitimizing educational opportunities, and then also funding Tibetan Buddhist nuns to go through the formal 5-year program. So we are launching that quite shortly, and that is chakpori.us. And so that stands for one of the oldest medical systems of teaching that came from Tibet back in the time of the 5th Dalai Lama. And that is the primary lineage, which I am under, and the main lineage, which my husband is under. And so that is chagpori.us. And so there will be a lot of educational, free, and for purchase teachings available there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nashalla. What a great session. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you for having me.